Hello everyone, my name is Adam Gaw. You would probably recognize me from Hedgehogs by Adam was the business I used to own, but this is my first video on this channel named Adam Reefing. I just want to kind of air out a few things. I actually started Saltwater Aquarium about a year ago, and I've learned a lot of great things that has actually saved my life. At one point, and that's a whole different video for another time on how that actually happened. There's just a topic that's been heavy on my heart that I wanted to talk about as my first video. Now, as you know, with a lot of different things in life and expertise in aquariums, you're going to get 100 different opinions for the same thing. So I mean, this might be just my opinion based off of like my research and education, so you know, don't treat it like it's the gospel. But you know, leave some comments or whatnot, or any suggestions that I could do. Again, I'm doing this off a cell phone. I don't have any special lighting or a roadie or any special software. I mean, I'm still learning the YouTube thing. But let's get right to it. So I know this might be a heated discussion. So in the comments, you know, we're gonna try to keep things civil and pleasure for everyone that's viewing it, because it could be children, it could be anyone. I'm trying to make this you know, a family friendly type of channel, and I'll turn the comments off, and then you just can't express your opinion if that's fine. Just want everyone to just be kosher, no name calling or anything like that. But you know, in the height of everything that's going on in the world right now, I thought it would just be appropriate to say coral lives matter. And this is going to be more about SPS, or small polyp, stony polyp corals. And you could possibly apply to other ones, but this is the big one that's hit hard for me. Do I have any of these type of corals? No. And I'll go through my reasons why. I've tried it once when I first got started. It wasn't for me, and you'll know why in a few moments. And I definitely want to help educate everyone on the issues that I'm dealing with right now. And this isn't just me reading articles. This is I'm in a lot of different Facebook groups that people are just asking all these questions, or I see all these things happening, and I understand that they're new, they're excited, they need help, but not at the cost of the animal. And I'm going to explain that in a few moments. So basically what I'm bringing up is, a lot of it is, I watched this documentary on Netflix called Chasing Corals. It's about a team of researchers that spend 3 or so months, hundreds of hours doing research on reefs, and coming to find out that our global warming has making a larger effect than people know. Our coral reefs are one of the unseen, unknown things that don't really get much publicity, and people don't understand it, like with global warming, that, oh, I'll be dead when this happens, this won't happen for hundreds of thousands of years. And what you don't understand, it's happening right now. Right now. Like, our coral reefs are dying. We won't have a coral reef in 25 to 30 years if we keep this up as a planet. So what I'm basically doing a TED Talk about is people that are personally reefing are doing coral reefs where it's about to be an extinct species. And I just want to be heard, because it's heavy on my heart about this, is that don't buy coral until you do your research. Don't even buy a saltwater tank until you've done your research. Not $1 on it. You know, don't, you know, buying coral and then throw them in your tank and Hail Mary and hope they're okay. These are living animals. They might not have hearts, they might not have brains, they may not be your own precious dog, but you know, some of these corals are as much as a rescue dog. And with any animal, you should treat it with respect, regardless of your opinion on who's more superior, if it's a dog, a cat, or a goldfish. I mean, every life matters, especially ones that are about to go extinct. Um, don't impulse buy your coral. And like I said, that might be okay with the soft corals because they're a lot of more resilient to different changes, but the SPSs are a little bit need more dedicated care. And basically what I'm referring to is the bleaching event. You know, do your research and be ready before you buy SPS. Just don't buy SPS and hope for the worst. I mean, like I said, these are living animals, and they're dying because it's your fault that it's happening. Because you impulse buy the coral, and then you start asking a million questions, and you wonder why it's dead 3 days later. Do your research. Research. If you plan on buying an SPS coral, buy the lights that it can support. It's an investment. The best lights, the top dollar ones, you're looking at your Radions, your Kessels, your Aqualuminations. You're looking at spending $200, $300, $500, $600 for these lights because you have to get the power to support the corals. And on top of making that light purchase, go ahead and buy a par meter. You know, Bulk Reef Supply, not buy one, but you can rent one from Bulk Reef Supply or from Pod Your Reef. All you have to do is basically put down a deposit for the cost of it, and then you pay for how many ever days that you need it for. When you get that light, before you even buy the coral, when you get that light, get it installed. Put that par meter in there and making sure, one, you're not blasting it with 100 par, or you're giving it, blasting it with 1,000 par, or not giving it enough 100 par. Because our eyes are very poor judgments of light and par. And you just don't want to throw a light in the tank and then put in the coral and just hope for the best. I mean, I guess, you can make the analogy for something else. You go and buy any other animal and you don't research what kind of food to feed it or how to groom it or take care of it or whatever, and you're like, and then you start freaking out calling the vet or calling a trainer like, why is it acting this way? Well, did you do your research? No. That's the reason why. So what you want to do is you're going to buy a good light, look at the light at the Kelvins, the par, the AB plus spectrum, and then your heaters, because most of the bleaching is from heat. To us, outside air, if it raises 2 or 3 degrees, that's fine. But when your aquarium's going 1-2 degrees for a long period of time, it's like us having a fever. It's going to be fatal. So you want to have at least 2 heaters, half of what you need, and in case one fails, that you can outdo it. And there's controllers out there that will shut it off if it goes above a certain temperature. Because let's say you've got your heater set at 78 degrees and it goes to like 81 or 82, and you let it sit like that for hours on end, you're gonna have some issues with your coral. You gotta have a backup plan. And I don't care like how fast your tank's gonna cycle. Wait 4 months. Wait 4 months for everything to stabilize before you start doing coral. And I would suggest starting with like soft corals and seeing how they do before you jump up to SPS. Nothing in this hobby happens fast. I don't care if you use like Dr. Tim's filtration from another aquarium or whatnot, even if you get it cycled in a day, which I've cycled a tank in 3 hours and I've had no fatalities, but that was a fish only system. So wait, be patient. The coral's not going anywhere in the next 4 months unless you're trying to wild catch them. The other thing that I want to do is that a lot of the other corals are resilient to change. So the SPS not so much. They can grow and adapt. There's been studies of the corals adapting to the new bleaching events that are going on. Don't let it die. If your coral is overgrowing, or you don't have room for it, or you can't afford to upgrade, frag it and give it away to someone. Try to sell it to someone. Go go to your local fish store and try to get store credit for someone. Worst comes to worst, find an aquarium, donate it to an aquarium park. Don't kill it because you don't think it's necessary or whatnot. I mean, there's a lot of trial and error, so I mean, it's understandable that even if you do all the research, things go wrong, things happen. It's life. That's how like Murphy's Law is. And I can tell you from personal experience, I got this bucket here that is just filled with coral. That is all my mistakes. But as you can see, most of this coral is SPS, or starting coral. And if you want to know, this isn't one that I have. This is actually from another tank. I want to use it for example. That's a bleached dead coral. And that's normally what you see in the ocean for a bleaching event. So what you want to do is, like, on top of your research is, I could give you the tools and help you go through the research. I would say the first thing to do is go to BRS TV and watch the 52 weeks of reefing. You're probably going to be about 60 hours worth of video. Some of them you can skip because some of them are like equipment tutorials where you don't necessarily need to know how to set up an apex or a tunes or something that you don't plan on buying. The other thing is that's causing the coral to die is not doing your water test. Do your water test. Pick a day of the week and make time for that day. I'll do it 2 times a week because I'm paranoid all the time about something going wrong. Find something automation. You can get a Trident, a Tunes, or auto top off, something automated to make it easier. I would say you can go with API for like your basic stuff like ammonia and nitrite and nitrate. But when you start going to your coral, you want to go up a little more with either Red Sea or Hannah. If you've got a little bit more extra money to spend, the Red Seas can go to about 50 or 60 bucks for a kit, and then a Hannah checker is $50 to $60 for one test for one specific chemistry. And log it. Either use a notepad or a paper. You could use a free app called Aquarium Note, or you could pay for an app that's like $10 called Aquarium. I personally use Aquarium because it has a cloud backup and I can access it through my computer if I need to. Just like any other animal too, you want to plan for vacation or if something happens. You can see like your local fish store, you can hire them and see if they could come over and do aquarium maintenance while you're on vacation. You could set up automation if you can afford a Neptune or a doser or something to automate the aquarium so it can run itself while you're on vacation. Or if you like to teach or make it an educational experience or have someone join the hobby with you, if you've got a close friend or a family member or neighbor that doesn't mind taking care of them, let's say a week or so before you go, teach them how to run the tank. A lot of stuff you can automate, and maybe all they need to do is just either feed it something specially that you can't do with the auto feeder, or put in some additives, or just a simple water change, and you can, create a manual or something like that. Now, I wouldn't say, hey, go watch, all the 52 weeks of reefing. Unless they want to. They don't need that much information, but at least have someone that you can trust that doesn't want to kill off, all your livestock. And the reason for the bleaching is that what it is that your corals have a algae called zooxanthellae that lives in the tissue. That's what gives the corals the color and the life. And they're symbiotic where they feed the corals. Well, if the corals get too hot, they'll basically do a bailout. And then when all the zooxanthellae leaves, all the tissue is white because they carry all the coral. The other thing you want to do is that when you want to do your research is how are you going to feed your coral, like your additives. You got to keep the things alive. It's alone. Just like when you own like a dog or a chameleon or a snake, you want to research on your food, everything you need. And the reason I'm like stressing this is that common sense is not common, and I'm not trying to say that anyone's like ignorant or dumb, but some of these questions just makes me, some of the stuff I see online just makes me like want to slap my head on a table. Like for example, like, hey, I see a lot of times like, hey, ID this critter, or ID this coral, and I'm like, how are you putting something in your ecosystem and not know what's in it? It's like taking medicine from a doctor and not knowing what the medicine is, or actually looking at the educational material that comes with it. You know what's in your tank. I mean, it's simple. You're complaining about you're having parasites or things that are going on, and do research on where you're getting your coral from. I personally know my local fish store where that coral comes from, either if it comes from a warehouse in South Florida, if it comes from Indonesia, you know, there's that. And I'll just kind of give you an idea. I use a lot of different things to keep my coral alive, and I am very like paranoid when anyone has an issue. I get paranoid because it's a living thing. It's not a plant, it's an animal. And so this is kind of all I use. I use reefroids for food, and then a few drops of Vitachem, and then I'll get some vitamins and amino acids, and then some essential elements, and then you got your iodine, and then you got to keep up the corals, you know, use, you know, magnesium, carbon, calcium. So then you got your carbonate, your magnesium, then your calcium, and then there's test kits to test some of this. Mostly is the you know, the calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity, your carbonate, and your iron. The other thing too is when you get your corals and you not know where they come from, and you don't want to have issues with your other corals or any parasites or your fish or whatnot, you always want to do your dipping your corals to keep them healthy and keeping your aquarium healthy, because you don't know where they come from. It's kind of like your children goes off to daycare, then they come home, don't wash their hands, and then eat, and then you wonder why they're sick. So, you know, it's a good preventative. I mean, I know some of these, you know, scenarios are probably the worst, but that's just how I could get my point across. And it's just, this is all near and dear to my heart, is keeping your coral alive. Do whatever it takes to keep it alive, even if like you're having issues and you need to go to your local fish store to see if they can maybe babysit your coral or something like that. If we lose the coral that we lose in the ocean, we're gonna lose a quarter of our wildlife is gonna be gone, and millions, if not billions, of humans survive on the fish that are in the coral reef and for money. And if we don't do something now, in 25 years we're not going to have any coral reef, and then we're going to lose, you know, the fish that's important to our survival, our immune survival. It's like having trees with no bees, and when you don't have bees, you don't have plants, and then that chain effect happens. And I'll just give an example why this is so important, and like it's happening now, is that there was a big bleaching event in 2016. 29% of the coral on the Great Barrier Reef died. What if that continued for the next 2 years? The Great Barrier Reef is not so great anymore. Most of our corals, because of the world climate change, are dying. Like I said, they're not going to be here much longer, so we need to do what we can do to get our, restore our coral reefs. The northern region of Australia, during this 2016 bleaching, 67% of the coral died on the northern region of the Great Barrier Reef. That's equivalent to losing all the trees, or most of them, between Washington, D.C. and Maine. And I can leave some links to descriptions on this documentary for you to, and anything like educational, like the BRS-TV, or where you can get some of the things that I mentioned. I mean, we need to do what we can, do whatever you can to advocate. And one thing I want to make another video on is that there's a store here locally in Pensacola called Emerald Coast Coral Farm, and then they are the only licensed for-profit facility that is actively working on the coral reef restoration in the Caribbean, the Atlantic, and the Gulf. And they do have some other overseas connections that they're working on, and a marine biology on staff that they are actively trying to restore the reefs and spawn them and try to get the coral population back up. And a method of doing that is fragging, and when you frag a coral, it stimulates growth where it ends up growing 25% faster than what it was just sitting alone. So a coral that would typically take 50 years to grow may only take a few years. And my goal of this channel is mostly it's going to be educational driven. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. There's already some great videos and articles out there. Why do you have to have 5 different versions of 5 different opinions? And one thing I say is find a mentor or find one channel, one person, and just stick with it. Because if you deviate from that, you're going to start having issues with that. So what I want to do is I want to do like education, like unboxings from local fish stores, mom and pop shops, online shops, eBay's, auctions, and support, you know, the mom and pop businesses and help them be known, because those are going to be the businesses that keeps the coral reefs alive. Because if in 30 years we have no more coral reefs, all our aquariums become museums, and we need to take care of these corals because we're not going to have any more to import. And you know, if people just willy-nilly just don't do their research and the corals start dying, it's not going to help. I mean, corals aren't like rabbits. They don't breed every 2 years. And normally when they spawn and reproduce, it's once a year. And you have to have the right artificial moonlight at the right time, at the right temperature. Like, everything has to be so specific and perfect for it to happen, or it's not going to happen. And then you have to wait a whole another year. I want to help, you know, find information that you need to make a great informed purchase decision. I'm going to do some videos maybe on different websites you can go to, different articles, books. I've actually got a stack of books that I'm working on, different, you know, Facebook groups to use. I want to help you find all the research that you can possibly do, and it's a little bit different than all the normal channels, because normally their channels are either unboxing products or sponsors, or they are just doing educational videos on how to use something or how to build a reef. And I want to go a little bit like fill in the gaps. I also want to help everyone. Should, you know, I believe everyone that's a responsible pet owner should own an aquarium, and regardless of income, you should be able to do it. So I'm going to work on doing a goal on doing a aquarium, a saltwater aquarium setup for under $100, which is going to be tough because your light alone could be that much. So I want to see what I could do there. You're not going to get SPS for 100, but we're going to see if we can get something, if it's like green, you know, GSP or pulsing xenia or a few zoas or something like that. But if not, just to keep it under the $100, just, you know, just a clownfish. I mean, the goal is getting a saltwater tank set up for under $100 and have some sort of livestock in it. And I want to have affordability options for all income ranges. I know I started off myself with a little 10-gallon tank that I got at a Petco $1 sale, and I think everything I ended up purchasing was like $100, and that was, you know, before I found out about bulk grease supply, and I did as much research as I possibly could before I got into it. I've been researching tanks for years before I even stepped into it, trying to do it, and I am not kidding when I say this, that I literally spend 4 to 6 hours a day researching. I mean, if you looked at my YouTube like view history or my reading statistics, I about died because I didn't realize I was doing that much research. But like, I'm not joking. You know, most of my free time I stay at home, I work at home, I just do research, and I'm never bored because there's always something new, and I've been doing this for over a year. So, experiencing trial and error, and connecting with a bunch of people in some different groups, speaking to people in some different forums. Reef to Reef's a great community. There's a beginner saltwater fish group on Facebook with like 52,000 followers. There's a lot of great resources out there, and I want to help you find them, because when I got started in this a year ago, my research was basically like a few books and articles and whatever I could YouTube or Google search, but I never knew about bulk reef supply, marine depot, saltwater aquarium. Like, I couldn't find any of them, and all the articles I was reading was everyone's opinion, and I'd find contradicting opinions, but there's nothing really. There's so much out there now that I could find that it's a big cluster and trying to find the right stuff. So I kind of want to pull it together, and I want to do different topics, like, hey, these are, let's say, skimmers, and these are all the different types of skimmers, and this is a selection, and this is where you can buy them, and this is where you can research them. Like, get you all that you need, because a lot of these are just product specific, or someone's sponsored just to talk about a product. And I know skimmers can go for $50 all the way up to a couple hundred. So like I said, I want to do some price range. Bear with me, I'm not with the whole pop-ups and visualizers and ads. I'm still kind of learning on how do you do all this. And even if there's more requests too, I've actually read some marine biology books. So I mean, if you really want to go into like the nitty-gritty on what makes a octopus color change, and go deep into like the biology of a coral, and I'm thinking about going to get a microscope and doing some micro photography and saying like, hey, this is what's in a drop of seawater, this is what happens when you get dinoflagellates and different things like that. And I'm just here to educate, really. Not really going to be too much of like how-to than maybe setting up a cheap aquarium, but it's going to be more like, how to care for certain things or whatnot. Because like I said, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's already been done. Like, I could, find a video on how to set up a saltwater tank, and I'll have like 50 different videos. So, but I haven't seen one that is done one for at an affordable cost. But yeah, that's just, I'm doing research, and it's really hit home to me, just watching that documentary on just how fast our coral are dying, incredibly fast. We've already lost, like, I live here near Pensacola, 80 to 90% of the corals in Florida are already gone. In the last 30 years, we've lost 50% of the world's corals. There's so much information out there just based on this website, and going to the Chasing Corals website, like dozens of links and articles, and I could send all that. We got the NOAA Coral Reef Watch, Great Barrier Reef Legacy, the Sea Visual. What they do is they kind of did a Google Street View with a camera, so you can kind of see the street view, and they actually have before and after where you can watch a time lapse within 3 months of a coral reef dying. I mean, this is how fast that it's happening. And the related thing we can do to kind of help this is, with our global footprint, because what happens is that the carbon dioxide and the fossil fuels that go in the air, they like to trap heat. They are a great heat trapper. And the thing is that our ocean dissipates most the heat. I'm trying to find this statistic, but basically that, let's say our average temperature on Earth is 58 degrees. If we didn't have the ocean to suck up the heat, our temperature would be 100. Yeah, so 93% of the heat trapped in Earth's atmosphere is absorbed by the ocean. So without our oceans, the average air temperature would be 122 degrees. So, and the coral reefs are important because they help with like the surf, with the storms, the storms. There's so much beneficial stuff. The coral, it's ridiculous. There's so much stuff, and I don't want to make this video too long, so I might want to do is break up specific topics if there's something that you want to know about or questions. Like I said, I'm not a know-it-all. I've only been doing this for a year, but I am really good at researching stuff and finding stuff. And if it's an answer I don't know, I'll let you know and I'll find it. I'll be like, hey, I don't know this. I'll get back to you as soon as I find it. But you know, there's some facts here I could post in the description. So. And I'm working on my public speaking because I say like and a lot. So it's a learning experience for me too. But I just thought I wanted to put that out there that this is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm gonna try to do what I can do to speak out about this and help as much as I can, because I did not realize when I got into this like how important it is to keep these coral alive, and I'll do everything that it takes for it to happen. And thanks for your time, and have a great rest of your day wherever you're at.